Hello, everyone, and welcome to In Conversation with Keep Reading Kristen. I'm Kristen, and today I'm joined by TF Warden, author of Bones in the Dark, Chartered Mage. TF Warden is a corporate lawyer by day and fantasy author by night. Born in France and now living in Scotland, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
He trades legal jargon for magic, political schemes, and murder investigations, and lots of things being set on fire. Your website tells readers to join Esther as she blows things up, which may be one of my favorite author invitations ever. TF Warden, welcome to In Conversation. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
All right. So I always start with the 5 word pitch, sort of the elevator pitch of the series. And you've already anticipated this without even knowing you were going to chat with me because your website describes you in 5 words: fantasy author, ass kicking corporate lawyer. I love that. It's exceptionally well played, but now you must do it again. Pitch Bones in the Dark to us in only 5 words.
Naive girl gives reality a kicking.
I love that. I love it. All right, so let's talk about the story behind the story. You began your writing career with fan fiction. What were you writing, and when did you realize you wanted to build your own empire?
So I think I always had ideas that I wanted to build for myself, but it was always very difficult just finding time to write and probably discipline and inspiration as well. And I was having a sort of worse time at work, and I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to write some fan fiction. It'll probably be crap, but I'll just do it. And so I started writing this Wheel of Time fan fiction, just a sort of idea that had been sitting in the back of my head for a while, and people seem to like it. It's quite Wheel of Time fan fiction is quite a niche universe. It's not a big one like Harry Potter or something like that, but people seem to like it. I got fans, so I kept writing, and I ended up writing this sort of 600,000 word monstrosity of fan fiction that covered the books from start to finish. And yeah, people like that. So then it was like I'd sort of proven to myself that I could do this and I could finish something and I could write. And I could see, like, when I go back to look at the sort of first chapters of my fan fiction, the last chapters of fan fiction, I can see how much better I got as a writer. And the same with my writing original fiction as well. But that was like the proof of concept. And then I just sort of finished that. And then the next day, just wrote the first chapter of Bones in the Dark.
That's awesome.
But Bones in the Dark had been floating around my head for quite a while before that. And the sort of general concepts had changed quite a lot over time. Like the main character, Esther Mazar, in it is not, in fact, the person who was originally going to be the main character.
Oh,
She's the third in the story.
oh, wow. So you're also a corporate lawyer. How does spending your day working with laws, contracts, and powerful institutions influence your writing and the empire you created?
Don't know. I think I just keep the two very compartmentalized in my head.
Hmm.
You probably see a bit more interaction with the legal system in my writing than you might otherwise. I probably thought through how does the empire's legal system work in a way that other people might not have. But yeah, the main thing I get from it is I think I can just it's made me very good at if I've got something in my head, I can just put it down on paper in a very organized way very quickly, which is what lets me do my writing. Because I mostly write sort of after 10 o'clock at night in bed uh, as a sort of winding down activity, and then just bang out sort of 500 to 1,000 words in half an hour.
Oh, wow.
And they're sort of usable-ish, and then I edit it later, obviously. But
Yeah, wow. All right, let's talk about 5 questions at the heart of what Bones in the Dark is about. Esther begins the story sincerely believing that the Empire is the greatest nation ever created. Why did you want your protagonist to begin as a true believer rather than as an obvious rebel?
I think obvious rebels are a very common trope in fantasy. And I think I just found the idea of the sort of empire which sort of hits a lot of the tropes for an evil empire. Um, as the sort of setting, and then having someone who's at their heart a good person, but in the context of a, let's say, at least grey empire. I've kept it ambiguous how bad it actually is, and I plan to keep it ambiguous. But it's certainly not the greatest place in the world to live. But having someone then who has to sort of have this challenge of sort of intense patriotism and belief in the empire, and at the same time a very sort of naive and idealistic worldview, and then having to face reality that that doesn't work like that, and exploring how their beliefs can be shaped by that and how they can hold on to that whilst staying true to their own ideals as well.
It seems to be parallel to some of the world that we're in right now, too.
Possibly, possibly. One of my strict rules for all the sort of comments on it and my discords on is absolutely no politics. I thoroughly enjoy talking about politics
Yeah.
most of the time, but not in my author persona.
Right. And the thing of it is too is like as readers, we can create that parallel in our own minds too in order to relate the book to
Hmm.
ourselves or what we're living through too. And a great book does that. So I love that about this book. So Esther's talented, highly educated, and really powerful for her age. She's not very old. She's naive though. It's super reckless. And she's not prepared for the reality of violence and corruption that she experiences. What interested you about that combination with her?
Um, well, the original antagonist, protagonist, sorry, I should say, of the book were actually going to be the thieves that she runs into in the early chapters, and it was originally set up as a, I originally imagined it as a heist novel with her as the antagonist of
Oh,
a sort of deeply annoying sort of detective
yeah,
coming after them and getting outwitted, but sort of being a bit terrifying at the same time. No, I just found that actually to be a far more compelling character than, let's say, another sort of cheeky heist gang,
yeah,
as characters. But I think it's getting into the sort of, ultimately, fantasy is escapism for a lot of people, and this idea of, so that's why it's fun to have a character who has a lot of power. But
exactly.
that sort of naivety and being unprepared for violence, I think, makes it a lot more interesting and, dare I say, realistic. It sort of takes it away from the Mary Sue-esque power fantasy and into something sort of more challenging, more character flaws. And it's probably been guided a bit too, but I've been doing martial arts for about 30 years. And so I've seen a lot of people doing it who then sort of are thrust into far more controlled situations where they're not in any real danger, but seeing the way that people who aren't used to physical violence react to physical violence, even when they think they can deal with it, is has influenced a lot of that, I think.
Yeah,
Just the sort of way that people just panic. They don't think they will, but then they freeze, and they just don't know how to deal with it unless they've experienced it.
yeah. I'm reading a book right now that Barnes and Noble had last month, I think is one of theirs, and it's about an asteroid, that a false alarm for asteroid that's going to hit the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
all of the people's reactions to that, oh, you're going to die in 5 minutes, and then what the
Uh-huh.
aftermath of it, which it's really interesting,
Okay.
because you
What's it
think,
called?
um, oh my gosh, it's a yellow cover. It's totally slipped my mind.
No worries. Sorry, that
Um,
sounded
I was
interesting.
reading it last night. I'll email you the title of it because
Okay,
it's
thank
it's
you. Yeah.
interesting how people react to that. You think even with all of your, preparedness, when you
Hmm.
actually come up to something scary like that, which your brain actually does. I've always wondered, like, if zombies really happen, like what we would really do, you know, um, when we're
Yeah,
thrust into that
and
world.
you never know until you're there, and it goes for all of these things. If you see something attacked on the street, some people say, "Oh, well, I'll definitely intervene." So, would you? I don't know. I'd like to think I would,
Yep.
but
Yeah, exactly. So Esther's a common born and she gets an academy education, and that creates a debt that she must repay through service to the throne. What did you want that arrangement to reveal about opportunity and social mobility within the empire?
So social status is a sort of fundamental part of Esther's story, both for the fact that she actually has a very high social status because of her state being a mage in the Empire, but also that she doesn't quite know how to deal with it because of her background and because she's not the most socially apt person in the world. Um, she's all right, but she's not. She's not got the highest emotional intelligence, and the but at the same time, this sort of it's part of what lets her be a zealot for the empire because she has been sort of plucked out of poverty by it. She's won the social lottery or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Um, so again, it sort of creates the sort of the social tension and the internal tension between the reality for the vast majority of people and her being able to believe the propaganda plausibly because it happened to her.
Right. Exactly. Without giving away spoilers, what's one thing readers may not expect when they begin Bones in the Dark?
Oh, it's an interesting one. Hmm. uh, who the main villain is.
Okay.
I think that they will be surprised when it all comes together at the end about who has been causing all the trouble.
I like that. So you did mention propaganda, and that's something that I talk to even as to my fourth graders because I teach ELA for fourth graders in history, and
Mhm.
we talk about propaganda even
Oh,
now. And
mhm.
some of your chapters include excerpts from fictional historical works that sound authoritative and propaganda-ish and reveal things about the empire and its propaganda. Where did the idea for those excerpts come from?
Honestly, it's I read a fantasy book that I didn't particularly enjoy, and it had some very pretentious epigraphs at the start of each chapter,
Uh-huh.
sort of in the same kind, setting out the history of the world.
Yeah.
And I just found it a bit irritating, though. So, well, wouldn't it be funny to put out these epigraphs, but have them just be complete propaganda? And that sort of developed into 2000 Years of Empire by Jahangir Amini, who's and the whole thing is just this extracts from this complete propaganda book about the empire, and it tells you a bit about Esther because it's sort of implied this is the sort of reading material that she's had through her youth.
Right.
And it also does tell you a bit about the world because it's propaganda. It's not complete rubbish. You know, it's about 60% true.
Yeah.
And it also tells you what the empire wants people to think about it.
Yeah.
So it's got layers to it, I suppose. But to be honest, part of it I've just thoroughly enjoyed the way that I have had some readers, outraged readers, go having a go at me about why is this written here? It's not true. It's contradict like what's said in the epigraph is contradicted immediately in the chapter. It's like that's the point.
Right. That is the point. How do you write the propaganda that's convincing enough for Esther to believe without presenting it to readers as objective truth? Like, was it difficult for you to write that propaganda?
Um, Honestly, no. I think I did a lot of politics when I was younger. I studied politics at university.
Yeah.
Um, and I've always quite had a thing stylistically for some of the more bombastic propaganda, as in just as an art form
Yeah.
um, that sort of more authoritarian regimes put out. Not to say I agree with them, but as you know, aesthetically.
Yeah.
So I find it fairly easy to just get myself into that mindset of kind of bombastic writing about how glorious everything is.
Yeah. I love that. There's this wonderful tension between what Esther has read about the world and what she actually encounters in it. What happens to a person's identity when the history that shaped them begins to collapse?
I think it can go in different ways. Some people will ignore reality and just try to reinforce their personality and sort of almost become more extreme in the face of whatever's contradicting their perception. Others will just collapse under it and have a breakdown effectively. And then some, I think, will sort of adapt and just try to hold to what's true to them whilst moving along in the real, sort of more and more in the real world. And I mean, well, you'll have to see which way it goes.
Yeah. So Bones in the Dark began as a Royal Road serial before being published by Mango, correct?
Mhm.
What made you choose serial publication for your story?
Um, Honestly, it felt like it wasn't a particularly considered decision. It was more because I put fan fiction out in a very serial style, as most fan fiction is. I just sort of kept going with Bones in the Dark. It never, to be honest, it never even occurred to me that I'd get a publisher for it. I
Yeah,
stuck it out there. I was thinking I might sort of self-publish it purely out of vanity at some point if I could find the time. But yeah, so I started putting it on spacebattles.com, which is a fairly big fantasy sci-fi forum. It has a big creative writing section, but more oriented towards fan fiction. And then after a bit, lots of people on there told me to put it on Royal Road, so I put it on there. And then it sort of was fairly successful on Royal Road, and sort of one thing led to another there. And I mean, it's still going out on there.
right.
Um, so it's sort of book three is being put on there at the moment, and book two will be coming down fairly soon for publication.
And how did Mango discover Bones in the Dark? Was it from Royal Road?
Yeah, it was from Royal Road. So I got an email from them and was like, "Is this a scam? This feels like it must be a scam."
What changed when you transformed the first serial arc into a finished novel?
um, and I did a thorough bit of editing. One of the nice things about having written it as a serial is that you sort of get live feedback from people
Right.
about what they like and what they don't like. And I mean, you can't please everyone, so I ignore some of what people don't like, but also just some story beats people would sort of say, oh, I don't like it. It's like on reflection, yeah, that doesn't quite work. So it gave me the opportunity to sort of clean it up a bit and change some of the bits that maybe didn't work quite as well as they could have. As it is, I mean, I think you can still tell when we read it that it was originally a serial just because of the way that it's structured. The chapter structures are very sort of web serial-esque. I think it still works, or I wouldn't have done it like that. But you can tell. It's not necessarily a bad thing, especially in the sort of lit RPG progression fantasy genre. Obviously, it's
Right.
not lit RPG, but it is progression fantasy.
Right. All right, it's
Yeah.
time for the fun five. So these are quick questions. Don't overthink them, and it's rapid
Okay.
fire. Here we go. What spell would you most like to borrow from Esther?
Saik, fire.
Me too. Which of your characters would make the best lawyer?
Ah, Commander Sabati.
Which character should never be permitted to testify in court?
Sir Vitali.
Okay. What is the first thing Esther would set on fire if she visited our world?
Oh God, that's a hard one. Um, I don't know, someone who disrespected her, maybe.
I can think of some things I would like to suggest to her. Which is more intimidating.
I was avoiding the politics there. That was the
I
first
know,
thing that
I
came to mind.
know,
And that's like, no,
I
no,
know,
let's not go there.
I know. Okay, which is more intimidating, a hostile courtroom, a martial arts opponent, or an angry chartered mage?
Definitely an angry chartered mage. Only one of them is going to set you on fire.
Exactly. All right, it is time for Would You Rather Chartered Mage Edition. You must choose one. Explanations are encouraged. Legal objections will be overruled. Would you rather investigate one murder in Vascaran or defend Esther after she solves a minor disagreement with a fireball?
Definitely defend Esther after she solves a minor disagreement with a fireball. She's a chartered mage. It's practically her job.
Exactly. Would you rather possess enormous magical power with no combat training or excellent combat training with one extremely unreliable spell?
Massive magical power all the way.
Yeah. Would you rather
No
discover that your
question.
I know. Would you rather discover that your government has lied about its history or learn that every official history book is completely accurate, but the truth is somehow worse?
Definitely discover the government's lied about the history.
Yeah. Well, TF Warden, thank you so much for joining me and taking us inside the Empire and into the wonderfully combustible mind of Esther. I adore her. She's a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see where she goes next. But before we go, please tell everyone where they can find you and what we should be watching for next.
So you can find me on Royal Road and spacebattles.com as well. And on Amazon for book one of Bones in the Dark. Book two is currently on Royal Road, but is in the process of being edited and then should shortly be published on Amazon. If you search for my name, TF Warden, then you can find my website, which has links to everything.
Fantastic. Until next time, keep reading, question the official history, and please use your fireballs responsibly. I'll see you in the next story.